The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization Show, the home of Googleization Nation, where we talk with HR and business thought leaders about all the crazy shift going on in the world of HR, recruitment, and business. I'm your host, Ira Wolf, and I'm joined again by my co-host, Keith Campagna. It's been another crazy, busy week filled with, as we say, a lot of shift. We'll be talking about the Garden State SHRM conference, from which I just returned. We were talking a little bit about that before we got on the air. Got a couple conferences coming up. Got the launch of the new online recruitment course, Recruitment Marketing for the Accidental Recruiter. Just had another interview with a video marketing specialist this morning. And we're going to have our interview today with our guest, Rhonda Taylor, who just launched a new book, Offside, memoir. We're going to be talking about that. And, a whole bunch of other things. So Rhonda's going to be talking about it. Interesting, just on coincidence. Coincidence. Going to be talking about some of the challenges faced by women in the workplace. This morning's news woke up to it. New book about Matt Lauer. Certainly kind of a disheartening, kind of the wildest form of discrimination, sexual harassment, and accused rape. So we're hopefully we'll try to talk a few lighter things than that, but we'll go from there. And then I came down and checked my emails out, and for the headline news, 18th straight month that job openings exceeded job seekers. So still a lot going on there, Keith.
It's impressive, and do you get the sense that our little podcast has actually encapsulated this convergence of the fit hitting the shan, so to speak, right? The shift hitting the plan. There's so much going on. And when we talk about the talent marketplace and we talk about the current condition, right, the present state of HR, and the impact technology has, and some technologies are more advanced, others are not. They're moving fast. There's all this crazy stuff going on. Ira, it's incredible to think that we're just getting started.
Yeah, we got, this is our 38th show, I think. Maybe this is the 39th show for this year. We had a bunch of episodes last year. October, we're basically last week celebrated our 1-year anniversary on W4CY, and that's been going great. But it's every day something. Again, we just keep saying it, and the subtitle of the book and the original title of the book, but it ended up being the subtitle was When the Shift Hits Your Plan. Yep. And every day that seems to happen. I was just out at in Atlantic City at the Garden State Conference, and it went great. It was fun. They had a couple hundred people there. Did micro recruiting in the age of Googleization. Still shocks me. Had about 100 and maybe 125 people in the room. Asked the question, how many people know what Google for Jobs is? And about 4 hands went up. Yep. Here we are 2 years later, still struggling with that. But on a really, really good note, and you introduced me to him, and I think you met him, was Dr. Rich
Pimentel.
Pimentel, yeah. He was the keynote yesterday. Unfortunately, we had to leave to do a couple things, so I didn't. But we met for breakfast about an hour and a half. Oh. He is a fun, amazing guy. In addition to just kind of collecting our story, reviewing, what was going on, he, just and for anyone who listens, we'll put this in this week's podcast as well. He was our guest on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving last year. It was a great topic because his focus for years has been about the disabled, he helped write the ADA laws.
Yep.
and he shared with me yesterday. He's worked with every president since Carter but one. I won't tell you who the one is, but you can guess. And he, in addition to that, he basically Clarence Thomas, before he was the head of. I don't know if he was the head of it, but he was instrumental. He was involved with the EEO, Equal Opportunity Employment Opportunity in the U.S. And Rich's program was he had gotten a call from Clarence Thomas. Knows him. I mean, he knows all these people personally. He gets calls from them all the time about improving, working with disabled veterans, reducing discrimination in the workplace. And Clarence Thomas took his program that he built and distributed it throughout the EEOC. Amazing guy.
And to hear him talk, he has the enthusiasm and the energy of somebody who isn't he's got to be in his mid 70s, right?
Early 70s. Yeah.
Early 70s.
Yeah. Not only that, 3 weeks ago, he had stents put in his heart. He was supposed to go for open heart surgery, and they decided to do stents instead. And here he is. Right. And he's disabled. I mean, he's he can walk, but he's in his little jazzy most of the time to go longer distances. But yeah, and he's got these ambitions. And one of the things is I've been trying to get somebody on to talk about, hiring people who have been incarcerated. Our prison population is huge, and there's a lot of people there that made a mistake, and they're getting out, and these aren't violent criminals, and that's his next mission. That's his passion. He says he is literally on a mission to get to change the regulations, to change the attitudes, to change the perceptions. And I know somebody that I met last year at the HR Southwest conference that has a staffing agency devoted to getting people who have been incarcerated back to work. So I've been trying to get her on, and I'm going to hook them up, and we may do a panel. We may have them both on the show at the same time. So ton of stuff going on. So,
and before and with that exact same idea, Rhonda is cut from the same cloth from Rich.
Absolutely. Perfect
timing. Before we get to Rhonda, I just wanted to, bring you up to speed with some of the stuff that I've been dealing with. I know that you did the Sherm Jersey, right? That's what it was?
Yeah. Garden State, New Jersey.
Garden State, right? I read we did the podcast last week from HR Tech on Wednesday at, 10 a.m. Vegas time. And since that moment, the stuff that I was able to experience and the people, and I have to apologize to Rhonda before she knows it, but I totally missed her out at HR Tech. But Ira, me and the CEO of the ROI shop, which is the group that I partnered with to develop HROI, Ira, we walked around the entire floor. We were just absolutely knocking it out of the park. It was simply impressive. The notion of HR needing help to buy software so that they can then evolve towards a more, let's call it what Deloitte calls the social enterprise, where they're focusing on engagement, employee, life work integration concepts. Before any of that can happen, HR needs to buy software. And the unbelievable feedback and the now incredible amount of work that came out of HR Tech. If I told you 9 out of 10 companies I spoke to last week are looking to move forward with something having to do with HROI.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah, the movement changes. And as you're saying that, I'm sitting here looking at that book I picked up the other day. As I said, I went to the book signing after my presentation. There was another author there, Mark Miller, and he wrote a book called The Death of HR. It's actually a novel. It's actually a cool book. It's a story. It's a narrative and it's a story. But he talks about the death of HR. So, it's at a critical time in history for HR. Really at that tipping point, they either got to get shift or get off the pot, for that. So before we go too much further, I want to give another shout out to our new sponsor, Zor.ai. Really appreciate them being here. You'll hear a little bit about them at the break. And of course, Success Performance Solutions continues to be our sponsor. We've got, last week we launched Googleization Nation, where you can get tips and articles and interviews and some discounts to courses, and any news, you'll be the first to hear it. You can get that. Just go to geekskeezersgoogleization.com. I put up a button there, and it just says Join Googleization Nation. Very simple. We just need a first name and an email address, and a whole bunch of other contests, and we'll try to announce them throughout the show if we can. We are live today. You can call us at 561-623-9429, 561-623-9429, with any questions for Keith or myself or Rhonda, as soon as we bring her on. Or you can go up to the W4CY.com app on your mobile devices, or go to the website and chat with us. Tomorrow, I'm interviewing Jonathan Duarte from Go Hire. We're going to talk about the application and texting in 2020, how that's changing radically. And next week, I'm going to be talking to Chris Denny on 10:15. If you go up to my LinkedIn, you'll get the notices for that. So, Keith, we've got Rhonda Taylor.
Yes.
So I guess to say that Rhonda loves hockey would be a gross understatement, and probably a lie. So, it looks like she started playing. I'll let her tell how many years ago, and along the way she organized the first of its kind tournament. It was the Women's National Hockey Tournament. And she later sat on the board as the first female for what is now Hockey Canada. And we know how crazed Canada is for hockey, so that's quite an accomplishment. A few years ago, she had a life-altering injury, but she learned, a ton more. We always learn life lessons, but she learned a lot of life and leadership lessons from that, which she thought were very transferable to the world of business. So we're going to hear about that. So, Rhonda, welcome to the Geek Skeezers and Googleization Show.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here.
Yeah. So this is a big... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just to back up, you were talking about incarcerated companies. There's a company that works with shrimp called Honest Jobs, and the two guys, Harley and Josh, have both been incarcerated, and they are doing an excellent job in that field. So you might want to check out Honest Jobs. Yeah,
if you can connect us or send me the info once we're off the show, that would be great, because we want to do a panel and get people on. And I've already talked to Dr. Pimentel, and he's ready to do it. So
before we dive deep into Rhonda here, I just want to share with the audience that I met Rhonda at an event. Maybe, I don't know, Rhonda, maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And my initial impression of Rhonda is that she knows everything. I think Rhonda is one of those secret wizards in the HR world where she's so impressive, Ira. She's got such personality. We talk about Rich Pimentel and his total energy, the way he captures you. If you ever meet Rhonda once, you will know her forever. And it's just simply fascinating to see you, Rhonda. Now, I mean, this first and foremost, the book was released last week.
Right.
So maybe if you don't mind me cutting in here, Ira, like, Rhonda, tell me what it's like to release a book 1 week later.
Oh, it actually is beyond expectations. Because everything is so relevant right now. Like you mentioned, the Matt Lauer. We also have the soccer team fighting for pay equity. We have gender inequality happening within teams. And my book, although it's a book about my hockey memoir, deep down, I'm an HR person, and I put all my memories of playing hockey and joining hockey, and relate it to the women's movement and the challenges and the obstacles that I encountered. And it was very interesting, Keith and I, that I worked with my great niece in writing this book, and she's 21, a 21-year-old university student. And I said, oh, and this happened to me. And she says, oh my God, Aunt Rhonda, like, that's not right. So things that we accepted 25, 30 years ago, the young people of today are just saying, I can't believe that was the mentality.
Well, we'll go back. Just the other day, I found this, and about 20 years ago, I found this thing, and it was about the Guide to Hiring Women, it was written in 1943.
Oh my goodness!
While we're on the show, I'm going to try to pull that up. We'll look at that again. I did post it, by the way, on LinkedIn the other day again, and I had it published in, I can't remember which one of my books, but. Even going back to, and this, Rhonda, you'll relate to this, 60s and 70s, growing up. And again, I know most of the U.S. history, but I'm sure there were similar things in Canada at the time, as I know that's your native country. People forget that in the late 1960s, a woman could not get a credit card if she was unmarried, and could not get a credit card even if she was married without her husband's permission. She couldn't get birth control without her husband's permission. The Ivy League schools, there were only 2 Ivy League schools that in the 60s were basically that allowed women into their Ivy League schools. As late as I think 1979 was the last school that allowed women to apply to that they accepted women into the program. So it's in it's in Rhonda in my lifetime. It's not that long ago. I mean, it's sort of embarrassing to think that that's how it was. And yet there are so many, as I said, even the Matt Lauer news this morning, not that it was new news, but, just that the book was being released. But you're right. I mean, you got there's still so much discrimination, and it's still so difficult. We got a lot of room to grow. Before we start, we want to get into some of the lessons you learned, and this will probably come out there. But, Rhonda, and we didn't have a chance to talk, and I don't know how much history you did on me, but, I switched from dentistry to business. I started this consulting company 25 years ago. But to this day, people say, wow, you were a dentist. How did you go from dentist to business? So I've got to ask this. I'm obligated to ask this question. How did you go from hockey to HR?
Well, it was pretty simple. I really didn't have a choice. I, honest to God, thought that my career was going to go up the ladder. I was sitting at the national level with Hockey Canada. I thought the stepping stone would be to work in sport administration with Sport Canada. But when you're working with organizations, you're working with a lot of volunteers. And you answer to volunteer presidents when you're dealing with sporting organizations. And I had a Me Too moment with one of my male presidents. I was organizing the Women's Nationals. We didn't have a lot of money. Back in 82, there was no PowerPoint. There was no fax. I flew into Ottawa, and I had a lot of meetings, and the guy came over to my hotel room. I had my door wide open. I laid the volunteer flow chart out on one bed. I laid the financial spreadsheets out on another bed, and I was going over them. And during that presentation, he turned to me and said, Rhonda, if you came on to me right now, I would not turn you down. Wow. And this is a man that I really respected. It was a man that I thought as a brother. I knew his wife. I knew his kids. Honestly, I was so nervous. I burst out laughing because it was such an awkward moment. And that laugh was my seal of death in the sporting administration world, because I was naive. I felt that I was somewhat to blame, like, maybe I was opening myself up to such a proposition by inviting him into my hotel room to show him the spreadsheets and everything. And you know what, guys? I only came to terms with this during the Me Too movement, and I realized I did absolutely nothing wrong But this guy arranged for me to get the golden handshake.
Yeah, well, and you're not alone. I mean, just as you were sharing that story, I mean, we can go back just in the U.S. You certainly get the news. I mean, we had the Kavanaugh hearings last year, Supreme Court. You thought that was over after the Clarence Thomas hearings. We were talking about him, earlier about that. But there's so many incidents. Almost every day there's an instance.
Yeah.
And last year, Keith, I think it might have been. Was it the same week last year that we were talking about the Me Too movement on one of the podcasts? I mean, it was right around now. It was really one of our earliest shows.
It was.
That we had that. And, and not that a year makes a huge difference, but there are so many, again, it's every single day there seems to be another incident, another accusation. And then Rhonda, I mean, as you said, certainly we I don't think any of us are really prepared for that, to be able to do, what needs to be done, because you mentioned the guilt. Maybe I did something wrong. What did I do to allow that to happen? And the times are very different, and now you tend to get away with it. But there is, and I wish I had this from him yesterday. I mentioned, Dr. Pimentel, that he actually asked me to review this ahead of time. I was one of two people that he said, "How do you think this is going to go over?" And he was supposed to send it to me, but he was flying out in the airport, so hopefully we'll get it and he'll be on the show and can read it. But it talked about being politically correct, and he sort of trashes that being politically correct is important, but it's become a buzzword. It's become an excuse for that. It's become the defense of many people. And rather than being human and being ethical and being moral and being polite and doing the right thing, it's become this, people who say, why do we have to be politically correct? And then the other parts, it becomes, that you have to dance around the issue and nobody wants to talk about it. So I wish I had that to share today, because it was a powerful, powerful message. And I know he was going to read it to the audience. And my bet with him, I have a bet with him, that people would literally applaud at the end of that. He was fearful that they would kind of, sit back in their seats and be offended by it. And I said, my expectation is they would have applauded. But Rhonda, I mean, so you're in a situation like that. Said it took, a few decades to kind of come to terms for it, or for quite a while to come to terms for it. I don't know if it was decades. I guess, what's your advice? I mean, you've learned lots of life lessons. Where do you go with that? I mean, what do you see happening? Is it improving? What are the steps people should take if they're in situations? So we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, well, you can take a look at Gymnastics USA and look at all that came down the pipeline there.
Yeah, still coming down.
Right. But just recently, the U.S. and Sport Canada have put a policy in place that a third party has to be around whenever there is a discussion or any activity relevant to that sporting organization, to eliminate the scenario like I experienced.
So when you say there's a third party around, I mean, obviously there's going to be engagements. There's going to be opportunities, to be with a, male or a female counterpart, somebody of the opposite sex. It doesn't even have to be the opposite sex anymore, or not anymore, forever. But, obviously, just gender equality. And so, I'm just not sure that's going to stop harassment. But what do organizations need to do to address it? So there's two parts to it. There's always two parties. Organizations need to change. I don't care if they're sports or business, for profit or nonprofit. They need to change. And then what can individuals do when that happens? And that's a lot. So that's two questions. And we're going to come up on a break here in just a few minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll finish whichever one you didn't finish.
Okay. Well, the one thing is that we have to remember that it's not a woman's problem. It's not a male problem. It's a societal problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that there's a whole new gender education that has to occur, and it goes right down to it even involved the understanding of women's professional sports. There's a whole education that our younger generation has to be taught and understood the value of it. Unfortunately, our generation, we've everything's kind of imprinted in our mind. But hopefully, if our grandchildren or our children come home from school and say, "Hey, I learned this," we learn from them. But it's like the STEM program that's going into the schools. I really believe that we need to do a better job to get rid of, and we're doing a really good job of getting rid of the bro mentality that used to exist in the old boys, like in the TV show The Office. Example, I had a pro hockey player as we were walking to dinner one night, and I was with all these guys, and one of the pro NHL coaches got in front of me, and he mooned me. Now, what happened was the guys all laughed. Ha, ha, ha. That was funny. And like I was just sitting there thinking, you jerk, you know. But I think today, if your grandchildren, let's say they're 16, 18 years old, were in that same environment, one of the other boys or men would say, is that really called for? Like, you know, did you really have to do that? So there is a little bit of maturity occurring, but it's got to go right back into the school systems.
Well, and beyond that, I think it's school and you know, again, it goes back to who's responsible for education, and I think a lot of parents have thrown it on schools, and yet it still belongs in believes in the community, in the home as well.
Rhonda, I want to give you a quick heads up. When we come back from the break, the next 20 minutes of your life is going to go by in the blink of an eye, because this is so intense. And I have one question I'm going to have to ask. I'll figure out a way to fit it into the conversation. But your mission, your message is unbelievably, I guess my impression and my takeaway so far is just how unfortunate it is that your message is so amazing and so necessary and so applicable to women your age, younger and older, to this new reestablishment of the females in the workplace, and sharing your stories and providing a course of direction for individuals, both male and female. I mean, I think it transcends so much more of the standard technology type conversations we have here. I think it's really, I mean, it's a sincere, this is what the future of work is going to be like. So get ready. We're coming back from the break soon.
So you are listening to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show. We've got Rhonda Taylor as our guest today. We're talking about something we shouldn't have to talk about anymore, which is discrimination, not only about women, but just as well, gender discrimination, all types of discrimination. Too many other super, super important things that we should all be taking advantage of. But this is, can't believe that we're still talking about this 50, 60, 70 years later. But we will be back, and we will have an opportunity to ask Rhonda quite a few more questions. We're going to take a short break. You'll hear from our sponsors, Zor.ai and Success Performance Solution. Stay right where you are. We will be right back in 2 minutes.
Behind everything you're searching for is something you're actually looking for. When you search with the real Yellow Pages, you get more than a contractor. You get a whole new curb appeal. It's not just getting directions to a dry cleaner with YP.com. It's rescuing an old favorite from the back of the closet. And it's more than finding a locksmith with YP.com on your mobile. It's getting to sleep in your own bed. Whatever it might be, there are more ways to search and more ways to find exactly what you're looking for with the real Yellow Pages, YP.com, and YP.com on your mobile, only from AT&T.
Imagine how your company would grow if your candidate experience earned a 99% approval rating. Well, to get to 99%, you need the three best letters in recruitment technology, XOR. Zoar's text bots, chat bots, and audio bots increased IKEA's candidate conversion rate 455%. Zoar decreases candidate drop-off rates, improves your candidate experience, and collects analytics for future strategies. To learn more, check out Zoar.ai. That's XOR.ai.
Hi everyone, this is Ira Wolf, author of Recruiting in the Age of Googlization. I'm excited to announce that my online course, Recruitment Marketing for the Accidental Recruiter, is open for business. This course is the culmination of a 2-year-long project and releases recruiting tips I've learned after hundreds of hours of research, speaking with thousands of conference attendees, and interviews with dozens of experts. It's all available to you in Recruitment Marketing for the Accidental Recruiter. To receive more information or get started, visit our website at www.successperformancesolutions.com and click on the tab Recruitment Marketing for the Accidental Recruiter. Hey, welcome back everyone to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show. I'm your host, Ira Wolf. I'm with Keith Compagna again, and our guest today is Rhonda Taylor. And as you just heard, our sponsors are Zoar.ai and Success Performance Solutions. Rhonda has a brand new book, her memoir. We're going to continue to talk about that, called Offside. You can get that on Amazon, and we'll be having a contest. We'll send out the information. We'll post it on the podcast. How to win a couple free copies of a book there. And Rhonda, we sort of glossed over this. So not only did you launch your book last week, but you started a new job, correct?
Exactly. It's been, if you saw my Facebook page, I said I feel like a superhero. Yes, I started as Director of Partner Success with Field 50, which, as Keith knows, I could have knocked on a lot of doors and probably really got entertained. But at this stage of my life, there was only one company I was interested in going to. I thought a lot of their management team, and I also know the technology that's state of the art. So I started October the 1st.
Yeah, wow.
I launched my book October 5th.
you talk about the shift hitting your plan, right? And and hopefully all good things. So we wish you tremendous luck in the career as well as the book. But let's get back to, it's also an important topic. We were talking about women in the workplace, and before and during the break of the show, we were talking about how sports plays a role in shaping our lives and lessons learned, good and bad, from that. So again, I started out the show, asking you made a transition from, hockey to HR, but there's so many powerful lessons that you've learned and that you teach people how sports can do that. So what are some of the big lessons? And I also want to kind of throw in, you mentioned that was it your niece helped you write the book?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I guess somewhere in lines here, how do generations play into that? Do you see a shift in generations, or is this just something inherent in human beings that we're going to discriminate? So, but let's go back to the first, what the role of the lessons learned from hockey or any other sports that you see that can be transferred and, critical skills that we need for the future.
Well, although my specialty is the women's hockey program, and the timing is so perfect because we're talking about the evolution of the professional women's hockey league, and sponsors are saying, are people going to support it? Are people going to be out here? There is a Dream Gap tour going around. I think it was in Philadelphia, it's in Chicago, it's Toronto, Montreal, and honest to goodness, in Toronto, I think there was 3 or 4 games, and they were jam-packed, standing room only, young girls in their hockey jerseys, getting signatures of the pro hockey players. And you know what? There's no major sponsor behind these girls. These girls are probably making $3,000 annually. They're going to fast food restaurants or organizations that will allow them to have flexible hours so that they can train to be elite athletes. But no wonder our CEOs, most of the CEOs of today's world, the female CEOs, have come from a sporting background. And why? Sporting teaches you to take risks, calculated risks. And these women have all been super successful because they know how to play with a team, like a team member, and they know how to be strategic. They know the importance of basic skills and to build on the basic skills. Sports is also, I'm just talking about another thing, sports has also been a predictor in society. And that's why I'm really talking. Where did we see the start of the blacks playing major roles in society? It was in baseball with Jackie Robinson. There was no total, integration at the time of Jackie Robinson, but sports walked the high wire and brought Jackie on board. And I love today, you can take a look at any sporting team, but unfortunately, I have to refer to male sports because most of us just see male sports on TV. But whether it's the NBA or whether it's the baseball, you see blacks, Latinos, white. Even in the NFL, there's the player with one hand playing. Everything sports allows for everybody to take a look at skill sets and forget about everything else. And I think that's why we need to take a look at sports. If we can get sports on track in regards to equality and equal pay, it's going to be a domino factor out into society.
And it's a challenge. I mean, again, I'm assuming this is similar in some areas in Canada. But a lot of the sports in the public school system are way underfunded. A lot of the schools that are in areas of lower income, especially urban schools, but they could be rural as well. But basically, lower income don't have all the funding that they used to, so they cut back on the sporting events and on other activities too. Do you see a movement changing? And as you were talking about, getting sponsors for or the lack of sponsors for that, some of the leagues that you were talking about and the women's tour, social media is changing everything. Basically, things go viral. The word gets out. You don't need a cable news to you don't need to be on one of the major channels anymore because some of the YouTube channels are surpassed that immensely. So are you seeing that the media is changing the way sports will be viewed? What are you using as far as where kids are going to be able to play it, or is it going to continue to become another something that the rich have it and the poor don't? A lot of questions there, so go where you want with it.
I know. Well, one of the things you have to realize that women control about 80% of the consumer dollars being spent.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what about
Absolutely.
you two guys, but your wives are digging in and saying, here's the money to buy NFL tickets. Here's the money to go to the show. We as women have to wake up and smell the coffee. We really control and have a lot of power. And we need to stop being so submissive and start standing up and saying, you know what, I'm buying this product because it's supporting the Serena Williams tennis program. Women need to start stepping up and realizing that their dollars, it can have an impact on future sponsors in women in sport. So, and we're slowly, Keith, and you and I talked about it. We're slowly seeing the death of the stale, pale old male. But that mentality hurt women in sports and hurt women in the boardrooms around the world. And the only way to get around that is through education.
Mm-hmm. Do you see a shift? I mentioned this earlier, but do you see a shift coming between the generations? Do you think as the millennials and Gen Z age that will naturally resolve some of this, or not? I guess
Oh, for sure. The Gen Zs are going to change the world. The Gen Zs are look at all the little YouTubers that are being so successful. And all of a sudden they have sponsors because the Gen Zs have taken them to that level. And the Gen Zs are very open-minded, and they're very aggressive in supporting their beliefs. And I just think that the future is definitely there, but it's the sad part, it's just not moving fast enough. And in my book, I go back to the book and I say, to you, the younger generation, I pass the torch. Years ago, 30 years ago, we were not even welcomed into the boardroom. We were locked out. Now we're in the boardroom and we have a seat at the chair. Now we just have to have our voice heard.
Well, I say it all the time from HR. I said HR has been fighting to get a seat at the table, and they have it, but now they need to get a voice at the table. So,
and my question to you, Rhonda, is, and we're coming up almost at the end of this podcast here, but my question to you is, the women that are now rising up as leaders inside of organizations, what are they doing that is, there's the theory, there's us on a podcast talking about it, but what are the women doing that are now, from your experience, from your perspective, what can women that are maybe not in executive positions learn from those that are? What are you seeing?
I guess, and that's part of the reason why I made my career choice. I have learned that the women who are getting up to the board levels, some of them are very brilliant, but others of them are just like the girl next door who's been strategic, who has set a goal on where they want to be, and they have put a GPS into their life, and they've made the role that they're in today. It's an open door. It's not necessarily the brightest. It's the ones who want to be there that are there.
So we're coming up pretty close, but I do have one important question. I think we left it hanging there, and because unfortunately, I assume some situations like you had, many years ago in that room are still going to happen again. If there's a young girl, well, any age, if there's a woman or a man that is, propositioned or made uncomfortable or discriminated against or harassed, what's your advice? What any tips or anything that you would tell them to do? Don't do the guilt, the self-blame. Immediately go to HR. Heaven forbid, some of the people who are propositioned are end up being, having mental health issues because it just came at the wrong time in their life. So go to HR, get help done. HR wears many hats these days, but don't let it happen. And if it's in society, go to your local authorities. The police are saying now, when it happens, you should be telling them. Don't wait until it escalates to the point where there's violence. Oh, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, when things cross the line for that. Hey, Rhonda, so there's, we're up almost at the end here. How can people get a hold of you? What's kind of a next step? How do they learn about you? How do they reach you? What are the couple ways? Share them all.
I have a website. It's called www.Rhonda Leeman, my maiden name, Taylor, .com. And feel free to reach out to me through the website or also through my personal email, rhonda.taylor@fuel50.com.
Sure. And Fuel 50 is a new company you're working with, and Keith knows
Exactly.
a little bit about that. So
Exactly.
that's excellent. I know you're on LinkedIn because we connected there too. And just do a search. Go up to the website. Kind of fascinating story. Lots of pictures of through hockey, but a lot of the lessons that you learned. So closing remarks, Rhonda. What's kind of the memorable things that you want people to walk away with?
Well, I want to walk away saying that it's a society thing. Whether it's diversity or inclusion problems, it's not a male problem, it's not a female problem, it's a societal problem, and we need the males and we need the females on board to make it right. We in the past, it's always been a patriarchal society where dad was always right, and we learned to respect the male opinion. Ladies, we too now have a respected opinion. And from me, I pass the torch to you.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. Wonderful message. Uncomfortable message to talk about for sure. Disheartening that we're still talking about that there's a need to do this. Hopefully through your efforts, we'll come to a point in time where that's not necessary. But I do congratulate you on getting the book out. And Offside is the title, correct? I think I pulled that down. Yeah, it's on. I know it's on Amazon, but
yeah. And I posted it on my LinkedIn profile, so you could just one click to Amazon.
And we'll set up a contest for people to try to order one free, but don't wait. Go up and get it. It's very affordable. On that. Sorry, Keith, you were saying something?
No, just Rhonda. Always fantastic to have you on the show. Finally, I'm thrilled about the timing that you've got right now. You've integrated your life, you've integrated your work, you're kicking butt, you're taking names, and it sounds like you're having a phenomenal time. So, congratulations to you. And absolutely look forward to running into you again soon.
Thanks, Keith. And you always have to remember that work is life and life is work, and it's all play.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, don't worry. I've got that down.
Yeah. and good luck at Fuel 50. So,
yeah.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Very good. Hey, Thanks very much. So, Keith, we've got another show under our belt. Again, not the most comfortable thing to be talking about, but powerful, great story. Great story from Rhonda.
And you know what, Bud? I want to challenge you on that. I think it's one of those things that needs to become comfortable. And because when you think about the way people engage in conversation, when it's uncomfortable, they tend to shy away. So I love leaning into these topics. I mean, there's no truer value than collaboration, and collaboration comes from every direction, no matter the age, the race. We've got Vinay. I can't think of his last name. My buddy Vinay. He released a book on ageism, and if you check my LinkedIn profile, you can find him, Vinay Singh. But Ira, it's just one of those things where the more awareness that we provide, the more comfortable it becomes. And then what we're doing is everybody's enjoying themselves and they're productive. And like Rhonda said, it all becomes play.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, part of that message is that you're right. I mean, I think that was an important, how you framed it, is that things that are uncomfortable for us to talk about, we need to make them comfortable, which falls exactly in line with Rich Pimentel's yesterday, that his message about the politically correct. And I can't wait to get a hold of that and have him share it, whether even if I get him to read it. It was very, very strong that people have a backlash to that we're just being overly sensitive. And for these issues where it's not just being overly insensitive, they're just wrong, and they need to stop.
Yep.
So we're at the end of another Geek Skeezers and Googleization, everyone. Googleization Nation. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We're always interested in what's on your mind. We're going to have a bunch of great topics for the rest of the year. We're all lined up talking everything from recruitment to learning to education to just drawn a blank on what everybody else is out there. But if you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor for the show, just let us know. You go up to the website, Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. All the information's up there. Don't forget to join Googlization Nation, and that's very simple. Join.googlizationnation.com. You can connect with Keith or me on LinkedIn, watch our Twitter feeds and LinkedIn feeds for a lot of news. Thanks to Zord.ai for being our sponsor, as well as Success Performance Solutions. Join us next week, Wednesday, 1 p.m., W4CY.com. You can catch us on any of the podcasts out there, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeart, SoundCloud, you name it, we're there. So until next week, this is Ira Wolf and Keith Compagna. Don't let the shift hit your plans.